Hello students, how are you? I hope that you all are safe at home. Follow WHO's instruction and save yourself. Okay, first you will read the lesson and then you will listen the video. Okay, today I will teach you chapter 2 of history. The name of the chapter is New Kings and Kingdoms. First of all, we will learn about political development in India, an outline 700 to 1200 CE. There were various kingdoms which ruled parts of North India from time to time. The Rajputs, the Palas, the Pratiharas, the Rashtrakutas, the Ghoris, etc. are some among them, and after the death of the king Harshvardhana in 647 CE, many small kingdoms emerged in the Indian subcontinent in between 8th to 12th century, and these kingdoms brought about numerous changes in the country's social, economical, political and cultural life. Okay, now I will tell you about tripartite struggle for Kannauj. Tripartite means Tripakshiya. Okay, Tripakshiya, where three parties were involved. Now I will tell you in detail. Tripartite struggle means a struggle involving three parties, and in case of the kingdoms, this struggle was amongst the Palas, the Pratiharas and the Rashtrakutas. There were several reasons for this struggle. Some of the reasons are: the most important reason of the struggle was the area of Kannauj, which was located in the Gangetic Valley. It possessed rich resources and fertile land and was considered as a symbol of prestige. Second one, Malwa and Gujarat were other important locations due to their proximity to the coasts, which were important for trade relations with other countries. Three powers in the tripartite struggles: the Gurjara, Pratiharas, the Rashtrakutas and the Palas. Now I will tell you about these kingdoms. The Gurjara Pratiharas dynasty, also known as the Pratiharas, was founded by Harichandra during the 6th century. The foundation of this dynasty was laid by Harichandra, but the kingdom gained prominence under Nagabhatta I. He defeated two Arabs also, who wanted to control Malwa, and the successors of Nagabhatta brought the whole Gujarat and southwestern Rajasthan under their control. And this dynasty was in its zenith, means on peak, with full power under Bhoja and Bhoja I. In this struggle, they used Western India as a base. Now, second one is Rashtrakutas. The Rashtrakutas were earlier the chieftains of central India before establishing their kingdom and ruling the part of Dakkan, present-day Karnataka. Dantidurga was the founder of this kingdom. The term Rashtrakuta means a designated officer in charge of a territorial division called Rashtra. Initially, they ruled the Deccan and later they expanded their kingdom towards the south and southwest. Okay, now the third one is the Palas. The Pala dynasty ruled over the eastern parts of India in the present day states of Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, and Odisha from the 8th to 12th century. Gopala was the founder of Pala dynasty. His son Dharampala further consolidated and extended the territory. Devpala was another prominent ruler of the dynasty during whose rule there was prosperity in the Pala dynasty. After the death of Devpala and also rivalry with the Pratiharas, Rashtrakutas, etc. weakened the Pala dynasty, though it revived during the reign of Mahipala. Its stronghold now was confined only to Bihar. Okay. Now, outcome of the tripartite struggle. है ना? Outcome means what was the result of the tripartite struggle between three kingdoms. It result weakened their resources. The Pala kingdom declined with its subordinates in Kamarupa and Utkala and replaced by the Sena rulers. And the last Sena ruler, Lakshman Sena, was defeated by the commander of the Delhi Sultanate, Muhammad Bakhtiyar Khalji, in 1200 CE. And after the Sena dynasty, the Deva dynasty came to power in eastern Bengal. Students, you can see the map of regional kingdoms in India 750 to 1200 CE on page number 16 in your book. Okay, you will have to practice it and learn also. And Gurjara Pratihara kingdom also declined soon afterwards, and its subordinated Chauhans, Chandelas, Gohilas, Kalachuris, Parmaras, and Solankis asserted their independence. Because of the lack of unity, the Pratihara kingdom also became weakened and also had given chance to do Muhammad Ghazni to plunder its western Indian territories mercilessly. And because of this only, Turks also got an opportunity to invade India and lay the foundation of the Delhi Sultanate. Thus, the struggle continued for 2 centuries between the three until the empires proved weak and disintegrated finally. Now, about administration. India had a variety of features because of the large number of kingdoms that ruled over Indian and politically. India was divided into several kingdoms where bigger ones were trying to overpower the smaller ones. Constant struggle and fragmentation was the part of the political scene. The kingdoms were centrally ruled by the king and were divided into rastras or bhuktis ruled by viceroys. Further, the rashtra were divided into vishyas ruled by vishyapatis and villages ruled by gramapatis. And the king of the newly emerged kingdoms adopted high soundings titles such as Maharaja Dhiraj and Tribhuvan. The king was advised by the council of ministers and the royal priests. The king maintained his own army and the king gave grants of land to many of his lesser kings instead of salaries. Okay, now about social life. During this period, caste system prevailed, giving dominant position to Brahmin and Kshatriya castes. The four major castes of Varna system got further divided into various jatis. A new class of clerical staff emerged known as Kayasthas. Okay, the position of women declined and the practice of sati and child marriage became popular. Sati, you know what is sati? Sati means what happened when a lady's husband expired. She also burned on his with her husband alive only. Okay. Polygamy was widespread as kings usually married number of times. Now about economy. Agriculture was the main occupation of people and trade was carried out with the Arabs. But overall, the condition of the peasants was declining and so was the trade. The interval fights within the kingdoms led to the decline of trade. High taxes were the source of income which was used in conducted business of the courts and maintaining armies. Now, rise of Rajput clans. The tripartite struggle gave rise to a number of kingdoms throughout the north and central India. And the Rajput emerged in the Indian subcontinent only after the rule of Harshvardhana in between 8th and 12th century. Their origin is a matter of debate among historians. Some are of the view that they were the successors of foreign invaders of ancient India like Huns and the Kushans. The Rajput themselves claim to be descendants of Kshatriyas, clan of Vedic age, belonging to the sun family or Surya Vanshi, or the moon family Chandra Vanshi. Rajput is a Sanskrit word which means son of a king. Rajput means Rajputra, Raja ka beta. They ruled in several parts of India but were settled mostly in Rajasthan. They were known for their courage and skills. There were many dynasties of the Rajputs which ruled over northern parts. Some of them are Chauhans of Ajmer, Tomars of Delhi, Parmaras of Malwa, etc. Prithviraj Chauhan was the most important ruler of Chauhan dynasty. Okay. Now, the Turk-Afghan invasion by Ghazni and Ghori. In the 10th century, a new kingdom emerged in Ghazni, Afghanistan, when he came towards India after targeting Peshawar and Multan. These both are now in Pakistan, Peshawar and Multan. First, they were the part of Punjab, India. Okay, he raided India 17 times in 25 years. When 1000 to 1025 CE. Okay, for its wealth and resources. For what? For its wealth, money, gold, etc. Gujarat and Kannauj were severally looted by him, and he plundered the rich cities of North India such as Nagarkot, Thanesar, Mathura and Mathura in Punjab, Mathura in UP and Nagarkot in Punjab. Okay, Mahmud even occupied Punjab and Multan. His invasions exposed the weaknesses of the Indian rulers, and he did not set up an empire in India, but he used the wealth he looted from India to beautify Ghazni. Al-Biruni, the Persian writer, has recorded about the invasions of Muhammad Ghazni in India in his book. The name of the book is Kitab-e-Hind or Tehqeeq-e-Hind. The next series of Turkish invasions was started by Shahabuddin Muhammad Ghori in 1175 CE. He defeated Prithviraj Chauhan in second Battle of Tarai in 1191 CE. First, he was defeated by Prithviraj Chauhan in 1191 CE. Okay, and the Battle of Tarai, and the second time in 1192 CE in the second Battle of Tarai, Prithviraj Chauhan was defeated by him, which laid the foundation of Turkish rule in India. Okay, unlike Muhammad Ghazni, who came to India only to plunder and acquire wealth, Ghori wanted to establish an empire in India. Although Ghori returned back and left his slaves to rule India. Thus came up the rule of slave dynasty in India, which diluted the kingdoms and established a sultanate under Turkish Sultan. Okay, now impact of invasions. These Turk-Afghan invasions led to the intermingling or intermixing of the cultures, as had happened in the past, and Punjab became a part of the empire of Ghazni. Weakness of the Rajputs was exposed. India's enormous wealth was plundered and taken away to Ghazni. The invasions gave a severe blow to the art of India, as several important temples were destroyed by the invaders, and his invasions played an important role in the spread of Islam in India. And in every invasion, India lost thousands of soldiers. And on the other hand, these invaders were the followers of Islam. They brought the Islamic culture and concept of a single, formless God. The blending of these two cultures and their traditions and customs comprises present day Indian culture. Okay. Now the Chola South India. In this I will tell you about their administration, economic conditions, art and architecture, importance of temples. Okay. First of all, the Cholas. About the Cholas of South India. In ancient India, there were several powerful kingdoms of the south. The Pallavas, the Cholas, the Cheras, and Pandyas, etc. These kingdoms were also involved in struggles against one another, which weakened them. The Cholas rose again to power in medieval period and made Chola kingdom one of the most powerful kingdoms of South India, and they came into prominence in the 9th century CE under Vijayalaya, who conquered Tanjore by defeating the Pallavas, which later became their capital. The other famous kings of the medieval Chola kingdom were Rajendra Chola and Rajaraja Chola and Rajendra Chola. Rajaraja Chola I. He ruled from 985 to 1016. Rajaraja was the great Chola king under whom the empire grew extensively. He began his expansions by defeating the Chalukyas of Deccan, the Pandyas of Madurai, the Cheras of Kerala, and the Gangas of Mysore. His expansionist idea led him to conquer Sri Lanka, which was ruled by the Cholas for 75 years. Maldives was also under his control, and he had trade relations with Burma, Myanmar, China and Malaysia. And now about Rajendra Chola. He ruled from 1016 to 1044. He was the son of Rajaraja. Chola was also an able ruler who went up to Bengal and Ganga basin in search of new lands. He proved victories and named himself Gangai Konda, means the victor of Ganges. He built a new capital near Tanjore and named it Gangai Konda Cholapuram. His territories extended to Andaman, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Burma and Maldives. Now about their administration. The Cholas were successful rulers who, through their skills and leadership, extended their rule beyond Indian boundaries. We get to know about the Chola kingdom through their copper plate inscriptions. These inscriptions give information about kings, conquest, agriculture, activities, etc. of their period. And the king was the highest authority of the Chola kingdom, who carried on his administration with the help of his ministers. The Cholas divided their kingdom into mandalams, means provinces. Mandalams means districts. Vandalams and nadus means villages. Administration was carried out by the local self-government at the village levels, which was very systematic and developed, and village assemblies, which were formed by adult male members of the society, were called Ur, Sabha or Nagaram. Ur was a common village assembly. Sabha was the assembly of learned men, and Nagaram consisted of merchants, traders and artisans. And now about economic conditions. Agriculture expanded during this period due to two reasons. Firstly, irrigation facilities were improved, and secondly, wasteland were brought under cultivation. Okay, agriculture was expanded to meet the demands to the growing population. Tanks, canals, and wells were built for irrigation, and forests and wastelands were also converted into agricultural lands. Village assemblies were responsible for providing better infrastructures for agriculture, like embankments were built to prevent flooding, while canals carried water directly to the fields through canals to water the crops. The economic life of the people was stable. The expansion of agriculture made the government to depend on the land revenue as a source of income, and also provisions were made to encourage trade, commerce, art and craft, and agriculture. Okay, now next is tax-free lands grants were given to the Brahmins. Better quality roads were built to encourage trade and commerce. The Cholas had trade relations with China, Persia, and other southeast countries. And now about art and architecture. The Chola kings were the admirers of art and architecture, which can be revealed by the monumental architecture in the form of temples and the sculptures they built during their reign. The Cholas made various Dravidian style temples. Okay, most prominent among which is Brihadeshwara temple at Tanjore, built by Rajaraja Chola, and Shiva temple of Ganga Konda, Cholapuram, built by Rajendra Chola. Temples were built of stone structure with tall towers called Vimana. And now, importance of temples. Temples were not only the places of worship. Many other activities took place within the temple complex, like teaching of Sanskrit by priests. It was used for meeting place, and many types of festivals and fairs also took place. Carnatic music and many dance forms of South India originated here, only, like Bharatanatyam. Temples were maintained through donations from the rulers and the rich merchants, and the temples also served as a source of employment for many people. Okay, so my dear children, my dear students, this chapter is over. You have to do MCQs, fill-ups and true false in your book only, and learn glossary also. Okay, write in your book and learn. Okay, and other which worksheet I will send along with this video. You will write all the questions in your notebook and learn also. Right? Bye.